So Annie, thank you for getting up and joining us.
I'm happy to do it. I'm afraid we're gonna experience my house waking up a little bit in the background. So dogs barking, etc.
Well, that's okay. We understand. So our format this morning is for our guests on the line is what it has been for each of our shows, but we're going to spend some time. I'll ask Annie some questions that Lisa and I and Lauren have concocted. And after we have finished that, then we have a special 5-minute segment with one of our own celebrities here in St. Louis, who's going to talk about her relationship with Annie. And then Lisa will take back over and we will open it up for questions from all of you. And we'll put those in the chat. So if, as Annie and I are talking, you have any questions, and I'm sure you will, just write them into the chat and Lisa will see them and ask the questions from there. And then for the end of our program, the last 10 minutes, Lisa's going to be posing a question, like we always do, to our audience. And then we'll wrap up at 9:30. So Annie, let's get rolling. You went to Stevens College.
I did.
Back to the woods. And tell us, please, a little bit about you. I was going to rattle off your bio, but I think it's better if we hear from you. Just tell us a little bit about you and then how you got into acting in terms of what your interests were as a young girl, as we saw, and so forth.
Okay. Well, I grew up on a farm in Kentucky, and it's like something out of an old movie, how a little girl from a farm in Kentucky ended up here. As we lived way out in the country, there wasn't much for us kids to do in the summer, and our parents sent us away to camp up in the mountains in North Carolina. And part of the camp was a dramatics program, which was taught by my lovely teacher, who happened to be from St. Louis. Anyway, I got hooked on being in theater when I was about 12. And then I went to Stevens College because they did then and always have had a very fine theater program. And then I ended up out here to do graduate school, as I had, right after I graduated from college, I was in a car accident, and I broke both of my legs, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able ever to walk well enough to actually, be an actor. So I ended up coming out to graduate school out here in Los Angeles to see if I could kind of get my feet under me again. And I started doing theater here in LA. And then I started working in film here, and been working ever since.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 2 older sisters.
Are they in acting?
No, they're both designers.
Wow, okay. So they must have liked seeing you in Designing Women.
Yes, I think that they did enjoy that. And one of my sisters was actually living in Atlanta at that time, and we drew from stories from her. In fact, the character that Meshach Taylor played in it was based on a real person in her design work there.
Back to Stevens College for a minute. How did you happen to select Stevens?
You know, my mother had gone there and also my older sister. And, you know, I don't think I even applied anyplace else. You know, it was a different time then, you know, when you had to apply to 10 schools and hope one took you. You could pretty much, it's like, well, if that's where you wanted to go,
Right.
you went. What these poor kids go through now, it's incredible. But you know, they had the oldest master apprentice program in the country. Uh, Owing to the fact that it's a women's college, of course, they needed to get the guys from someplace. And so they got professional actors from New York to come and do 2 and 3 year stints there. It was a wonderful, it was a wonderful program in that way.
And I know you stayed involved with Stevens College.
Yes, I did. I was on the board, which is how I met one of your members, Marlene, the wonderful Marlene. I had come back, excuse me, from for a board meeting, and it was during an election time. And I thought, you know, I'm here already. Missouri, as always, was sort of a political football at the time. And I thought, I'm just going to call the Democratic Party and tell them I'm here and say, gosh, could you use me? And they said, yeah, we could. And would you like to stay with some friends of ours, the Hammermans? And I was like, yeah. And so we had the best time.
Yeah, Stevens College still has very good programs. So you certainly went to one of the best. We know that. So let's, Lauren, our cute control operator, let's take a minute and show a clip from Young Sheldon.
So what's going on?
I think I have a boyfriend,
Wow.
but you cannot tell Mom.
Oh, of course. I love not telling your mother stuff. So what's his name?
Marcus Adam Larson. He's 11 and a half. He has blonde hair, his favorite color is green, and he's learning how to skateboard. But he's not very good yet.
Okay, well, I have to ask now, at your age, having a boyfriend, what does that mean? Do you go out on dates?
No,
Do you hold hands?
I wish, but no,
So how do you know he's your boyfriend?
because this happened.
Well, I didn't realize you had documentation.
I know.
Cute. Okay, so you play such relatable characters. Does that affect, do you pick and choose the roles that you want? In this one, in this show, they obviously make you up to look older. How do you feel about that? Maybe talk a little bit about this clip and Young Sheldon.
Oh, isn't she darling, that little girl? I just love her to pieces. You know, well, I had gone through a period when I wasn't working very much. There's not a lot of roles for women over 50. And so this show was created by Chuck Lorre, who, you know, really has the Midas touch here. So I knew it would be wonderful. So when that came to me, I jumped on it. My husband is a director and producer, and he had moved to New Orleans directing and producing NCIS New Orleans. So I had sold my home in LA and moved to New Orleans with him because I thought, oh, well, you know, I'm not working so much. We couldn't really keep up two houses. So I moved there. And of course, as soon as I moved there and renovated our home there, I got the call to come back and do that. Isn't that the way it always is? So I felt really fortunate to have to have good work with somebody like that. And I'm a workhorse. I love to work, and I'm happy to play a grandmother. And I thought, it was relatable to put the Meemaw wig on and do her in that way. So I have always tried to pick and choose as I could. But I heard the wonderful actress Maureen Stapleton once, someone asked her how she chose her roles. And she said, chose my roles. Chose my roles. She said, I'll tell you what, if I read the script and it didn't make me vomit, I did it. Now, I've been a little choosier than that, but I just like to work, and I've found value in most of what I've done.
Have you ever played any roles that you didn't like? And you're sorry you took the part?
I don't think so, because there's always something there. There's a person or an experience or something in it that you go, oh yes, I know, I understand why I did that, when maybe you're thinking, oh well, that was a loss. But it's never lost. There's something in it.
That's so positive. That's really beautiful to hear. What is there anything else that drew you to Young Sheldon?
Well, I wanted very much to work, and I have to say, at that time I was missing Los Angeles and really was hoping to come back. And Chuck Lorre's shows have a habit of lasting for a long time, and I've done series work for so long. It's sort of the pattern of my life. I'm like one of those people who can't get out of academia, because they just love school. They love the structure of it, and they love going up and hanging with the kids. So I'm like that person. I just like to work. I like to do what I do. I've done quite a bit of stage work as well, but that is, and I was thinking that I would be doing more of that. I did just, I had done Pippin in New York. I took over for Andrea Martin doing that. And before that, I had done God of Carnage, which both wonderful shows, and I had the best time. Of course, in Pippin, I got to go up on a trapeze. So I learned the trapeze at 62.
Whoa. And just pivoting to Broadway for a minute, what was a favorite role that you played?
Well, I've only done those two shows, but I have to say, if anybody had told me when I was a kid coming up in the theater that I would be 57 when I made my Broadway debut, I might have been a little crestfallen to imagine that it would take me that long, because really it was my career goal to do that. But it just took me a little bit longer, but I sure loved it when I got there.
Do you see, just to shift gears for 1 minute, given the pandemic, what do you see happening with Broadway? If you had a crystal ball.
Oh, I wish I did have a crystal ball. Well, I think we'll beat it. You know, I think that we'll get a vaccine and we'll go back, and won't we appreciate it when we do? Um, but I think meanwhile we'll find a way to do some smaller things with smaller crowds, keeping our physical distance. But I can't imagine what the atmosphere is like in New York with the, you know, Broadway is like, it's like a college campus there with all the collegiate kind of conviviality that is that you have in schools. And I just can't, it seems like the heart would be cut out of Manhattan without it. But I have faith that we will get through this and get back to the theater. I for one feel like I have something else to do there. Oh, I hope.
So I can't book my theater tickets just yet.
Not yet. Maybe by next summer,
Wow.
depending on how the trials go with the vaccines.
Vaccine. So, let's turn to movies for a minute. What is the favorite movie that for you that you were able to make?
You know, my movies are like my children. I love them all. For different reasons, but it's the same. I learned things. There were people there that who brought things to my life. But my favorite movie actually was the one that's probably least known, which is a movie called Texasville, which was the sequel to The Last Picture Show, which Larry McMurtry famously wrote. And it was a wonderful experience, and I got to work with the divine Jeff Bridges, who's so smart and such a dedicated artist and so much fun and so sweet and super handsome too. So I had a really good time doing that, and it drew me out of, you know, the grass is always greener. I'd been doing a lot of comedy, and I wanted to do the other thing as well, so I got to do that there.
You also did the Toy Story movies.
Yeah.
We have a question about that because of the animation and the way Toy Story movies are. Do you actually run your lines with the other actors, or do you do your lines in an isolated way and then the editors put it all together? How does that work? I mean, were you in the same room with Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, or?
You know, only on the last one. I was in 3 of the 4. And for the first 2, I worked always alone. But for this last one that came out last year, excuse me, because of the nature of it, most of my stuff was with Tom, and they decided to bring us in together, which was wonderful, I have to say. I mean, you'd never know it from most of those movies, but most people do work alone in that. I mean, sometimes as the movie goes on, I mean, I worked on the last Toy Story for 5 years. So, but usually not till the end of those development periods might you have, there's enough I mean, they're so tedious. The man hours that go into every frame is just, it's unbelievable. So usually it's not until the end of that process that you start to be able to go in there and hear enough so that it starts to sound natural. You're just sort of, talking to yourself. But the Pixar people are very good at guiding you through that.
But it sounds like that could get really tedious.
It is
Just in terms of
it's
continuity.
incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
First of all, you put on headphones, so you're kind of living in your head immediately. And I mean, I love working for them. They're so, they all those people, they have like golden ears. They know exactly what they want. And you'll do a line 100 times. So it's very precise work, and it is really hard. That's why it was so welcome to, in the last one, to work so much with Tom. Of course, that's always fun anyway, because he's pretty, as you can imagine, sensational. So, but it is very, very painstaking, and it's exhausting, because when you're doing that, all you have is your voice. You don't have your own body, your own facial expressions, although generally they do have a camera set up and they record you as you're doing them. So they do take little things from you, and so that they become, those little animated things do bear some likenesses to the people.
Right. Thank you. That's interesting. A TV show, of course, that I think we all know you from is Designing Women. That goes way back. Do you stay in touch with anybody from Designing Women?
Yes, I do. I'm in touch with everybody who's still alive. Our wonderful creator, Linda Bloodworth Thomason, who's also from Missouri, and Jean Smart, and Delta. Our beloved Dixie Carter left us 10 years ago. But everybody else.
Okay. Do you think there'll be any chance of a remake of Designing Women, or?
Well, I know that there is some interest in it, and I also know that Linda is writing a play that is the Designing Women play. So it's going to come back in some form.
Some form. Well, that's fun to look forward to. Definitely. Let's talk just a little bit about your nonprofit work. We always like, with our guests, to talk about the ways in which they make a difference in the world. And you are making a lot of differences in the world. Talk about your masks and some of the other nonprofit endeavors that you are into.
I'd love to. Well, there's a couple of different ones. I have, my best friend was the executive director of a nonprofit up in Northern California called White Pony Express. And they started out as a food rescue operation, because there were you know, there were so many people going hungry in the town that they were based in, which is a very Tony little bedroom neighborhood of San Francisco. So there was incredible abundance around, and also, you know, in stark contrast, great poverty as well, and people going hungry. And food was just, this was 7 years ago. People, you know, at that time, they were just throwing food out. So they went in and rescued this food and made sure that it got to people who needed it. And that's now they're rescuing something like 17,000 tons a day, and feeding people that, and of course the need has gone up exponentially since the pandemic, of course. So the need was so great when this all first came down 6 months ago. I thought, oh my God, how can I help? And because ooh, there's my puppy. They needed more funds, and so for my own family, everybody's like, well, you've got to wear a mask. And because I learned to sew in theater school in Columbia, Missouri, I had left my sewing machine in New Orleans. So I got on the Amazon and got a little sewing machine to myself, and I began to make masks for, you know, my friends and family first. And then it was like, wow, I could, material was even very hard to get then. I mean, interesting material. And the wonderful actress Cece Pounder is a friend of mine, and she went, oh, I collect fabrics, let me give you some. So she sent me two big boxes of all this fantastic African cloth that she had been collecting. The wax block fabrics that are so fantastic, that I was unfamiliar with anyway. So I started sewing away, and I went to the White Pony and I said, do you think you could auction off some of my masks to, you know, make money? So they made a big deal of it, and we raised almost $60,000 selling my little mask. Wow. And so I've done that for several groups now, and I'm doing another thing right now for the island of Anguilla, which is a little island in the Caribbean where I've been going for 30 years. And I mean, we forget, it's places like that, they had to just close their seaport and their airport, and nobody could come in or out, because the island is in no way situated to, if COVID came there, I'm pretty sure it would wipe out the island, because everybody lives in extended family groups and everything. So I'm now with my friends, the Blanchards, who have two wonderful restaurants there that they've turned into food pantries. We're trying to raise money again. So I'll be happy to share that information. And then, because of the work that I'd been doing with White Pony Express, the founder of that program, Dr. Carol Weiland Connor, came to me and said, do you think you and your husband and some other friends of ours might like to put together a fund to help those who need it most? Because people are, you know, there are people who are circling the drain. So we started this fund called All Are One. And what we do is we collect funds, and then through other people who are in the field and have boots on the ground, who know where the hurt is greatest, we give cash out to people. we've been trying to give it in bundles of $1,200, which is, you know, the stimulus fund, because, you know, our government is not being very helpful. And most of these, I mean, this is the poorest of the poor, those who are the undocumented and unbanked people who are, you know, cleaning up the emergency rooms where the COVID people come in and are most likely to get sick if they have to continue to work. And anyway, so we've been doing that, and that's been very rewarding as well.
Well, thank you for all of that. That's beautiful. Really, thank you. And
My pleasure.
I know you wrote a children's book.
Yes. Well, that
So-
was in answer. I was down on the little island of Anguilla, and met a little boy there who couldn't speak, and they have one little school there. Wow, somebody must be coming in. Excuse me, Sister Rufus, come here. Stop that. Anyway, this little boy had never been diagnosed. I asked his mother. I was swimming there, and he wanted to borrow my goggles. He pointed at my goggles, and so then I realized he couldn't speak. And I asked his mother what was going on, and she said she didn't know. He had never gotten a diagnosis, and so I started looking around for what kind of help he could get locally or on a nearby island. There was very little, but to this one little place that was serving about 12, 13 kids. And I had learned from another family member who's had a lot of success in Africa, helping local peoples by not just giving them money, but letting them decide what they need. So I mean, I always go to what I can do with my hands, you know, like the mask. And I had put a little app on my iPad and I was sitting on the beach, and he's a very beautiful little boy. And I started drawing him, and soon I had like 50 little drawings of him. And so I made a little book up about him, and it sells on the island, and all proceeds go to help the foundation there for special needs. And now he has he's Anguilla is a protectorate of Great Britain, so we got him to England, where he is now in special needs school, and his very brave mommy has been so amazing for a girl who'd never been off the island. She really had a lot of pluck that I would never, I wondered if I would have had myself. One of my, I have 3 fabulous sons, and one of them had a learning difference, and I was thoughtful about how difficult it was to get him in just the right schools to educate him. And here in LA, of course, we had many resources and support, but here was this woman on an island in the middle of nowhere with, you know, she still didn't have a diagnosis for him at 8 years old. And it wasn't until she got to England 3 years later that they could start to work on his issues so he can, you know, get on in life. So that's it. The book is about him. And
Thank you. That's a beautiful story.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you so much. I just for a minute, I want to turn to Marjorie Hammerman. Many of you know Marlene as one of our past presidents for National Council of Jewish Women, and we have the pleasure of having Annie with us today because of her relationship and rapport with Marlene. And Marlene, Lisa, and I thought you might just want to share for a minute or two how you got acquainted with Annie. She told a little of it. You may want to tell a little more.
Sure, I would love to. First of all, virtual hugs and kisses to you, Annie. You have never failed us when we have asked you to do anything for us. It has been a terrific honor to know you. As Annie said, it was in 2004, and I was volunteering on the Kerry campaign, and Stacy Newman asked me if I would be so kind as to house a Hollywood celebrity for a few nights and who wanted to work on the campaign. And that was the beginning of my relationship with Annie. In fact, that first night, Stacy dropped her off at an NCJW fundraiser that we had downtown. And the minute she walked in, NCJW fell in love with her. She was just so relatable and so much fun to be around. And what turned out to be just our introduction turned out to be a 5-night girls sleepover, which was so much fun. I mean, when do you get to wake up around the kitchen table in your no makeup and jammies and have breakfast with a movie star? And it was just, we took her, she worked. She did not act like a celebrity. She actually worked the phones and did everything and went to rallies and spoke there. And it was so much fun. And she actually came back then for another NCJW event that was at my house that she had been at, I think, on the board of Stevens. And so she was in town and asked her, since that would coincide, you know, with our event, if she would come for a breakfast, and she did. And the next time I think, Annie, you and I saw each other was when you were in Pippin. Harley and I had seen it just the year before. It's one of our favorite shows. And for those of you who haven't seen the revival, it is like Cirque du Soleil as a musical. And so even though we had seen it the year before, the same revival, when we found out Annie was in it, we got tickets again to see it. And when I told Annie we were going, she said, come backstage afterwards, and then we'll go out to dinner. So it was just a thrill. We came backstage and met all the actors and then went to dinner. So much fun. One of the things that I think you told us about that night in that performance was not only were you on a trapeze doing acrobatics high up in the air on stage, but that the cast had switched and the guy who was on the trapeze with you, handling you, it was his first night in that role. And you were like, yeah, I mean, we didn't know because you were spinning all around that trapeze that it was a little bit tenuous that night, wasn't it?
Yes,
So, yes.
it was. I'd forgotten that was the night you came. Oh my God, that was really scary.
Yeah. And there's someone who wants to say hi to you, who fell in love with you.
Hi, Annie.
Hi, Harley. How are you?
I'm doing great. Boy, we have such memories of you being here. It was so much fun.
I'm loving your post about the forgotten eateries in St. Louis. They're fantastic. I need to go on an eating tour with you guys.
Well, once COVID is over, come visit us and we will definitely go on an eating tour. We'll have a blast.
I love it.
Yeah.
We'll all go.
Thanks so much for doing this for us.
Oh,
And
my pleasure.
what's going on? We do want to know, are you feeling safe in LA with the fires and everything?
Well, it's I don't know. it's early in the morning, but maybe if you can see out, I don't know if you can see out the window. Probably not. There's construction next door. I'm afraid I can't get you there. But we really haven't literally seen the sun in a week. If you see it at all, it appears as a little orange ball with so much smoke in front of it. It's really something. And we are hoping that it's going to clear up soon.
Well,
But
stay
it's been scary.
Thank you, Marlene,
Thank you, Marlene.
safe.
and thanks for all of that, Annie. I'm going to turn things over to Lisa.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it up to everyone to ask questions, and I'll read them off. If you want to put them in the chat, I can read them and ask Annie. But before I do that, Annie, can I ask you a question? I know that Young Sheldon, you said it's going to start filming next week. Do you have a feel for how that's going to look? Are you quarantined right now, and are other cast members also?
Well, I mean, I haven't done anything in 6 months but make masks. But they are taking great pains to make sure everybody's safe. We'll all be tested 3 times a week. I think most of the crew is going to be dressed up like astronauts in their PPE. And actors are only allowed, when we're working with each other, to take our mask off, I think for 8 or 9 minutes at a time. So I think it's going to be challenging, but you know, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. I mean, there are other people who are up and running now, and I think if I mean, we have to get our industry going again.
Right. Well, I hope, we're hoping all goes well. And I had a question from Judy, who loved you in Pippin on Broadway, and she asked, was that a fun role for you?
That was so much fun. Because as I touched on a little bit early on, when I was just 21, I was in a very bad car accident, and I broke every bone below my waist but one. So I'd done a lot of musical theater before that, and I thought that was going to be my ticket in, you know. So but all of that was gone after that. And that at 62, to find a role that I could do and get back on stage and do not only sing and dance, but to do a trapeze act, my patience paid off, because I got everything I ever wanted and more then. So it meant more to me than you can imagine. So yes, that was pretty great.
That's wonderful. And Ellen, she's our CEO of NCJW. She asked you about favorite restaurants in New Orleans.
Favorite restaurants in New Orleans, where there's so many. We love Pesh. Pesh is fantastic. And Cochin is fantastic. And we like a little neighborhood place called Patois in Uptown. Maypop. Oh my, the food is so good.
I've never been there. Someday.
It's a fun place.
Someday. Although my child might be trying to get into Tulane, so maybe I'll make it there. But,
it's a great school. The kids love it down there.
I know. I've heard wonderful things about it. And then I got a question from Dan Goldman, or Jan Goldman, asking, how are you managing the long distance living with your husband, or are you two able to be together right now?
Well, after 6 years, yes, we've just moved back in. So he has some very strict rules now. It's like, are you going to put this spoon in the dishwasher? Or are you waiting for me to do it? Because I'm not used to that now. So yeah. So after 6 years, we are back under the same roof.
Then you're leaving,
No,
right?
no.
Oh, I don't know if when you go on the show that you can't come back and forth, or you can go home each day.
Yeah, in fact, I live within walking distance of the studio,
Oh.
so yeah.
Wow.
But you know, once we start shooting next week, once that happens and I've got my last COVID test, it's, you know, I'll have to be uber careful.
Mhm. Absolutely. And again, Ellen and then Nancy Barbaro, when you were talking about your masks and making masks, they were wondering if we could have some and sell some. It might be a good fundraiser for our couturier, for our resale shop, and that money goes to help families and women and children.
Absolutely. I'd love to send you some.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
I know you sent us a few. Susan showed me yesterday that we got your package of a few that were spectacular. So that would be amazing to get some of your masks
That
in your spare
fabric's
time.
fun, isn't it?
In your spare time.
Well, actually, I've banked some, so I have some that could be available.
That's awesome. We would love that.
So, Susan, you just talk to my assistant, and she will arrange that for you.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you. And Jen Bernstein said, Iona from Pretty in Pink, that's my favorite movie, by the way, too, is such an iconic character for Gen X women. Do throngs of former punk, new wave, Gen X women like myself, I didn't know you were that, Jen, constantly bug you about this amazing character?
Oh, you know, nobody ever bugs me. I think most people just want to tell me that they love me, and you know, that's owing to the lovely characters, really, that I've gotten to play. But the wonderful thing about Pretty in Pink, I think, is that it you know, it's just kept on for each generation. I know people in, is it Jan's generation loved it for certain reasons, but now, you know, they're watching it with their young teen daughters, and it's held up very well. I think it's too bad that we don't have a writer like John Hughes, who is so tapped into youth. I know kids are really struggling right now because everything that I mean, everything's so topsy-turvy, and they're separated from one another, and adolescents just love to be together, you know. It's hard.
It is. I have a almost 14-year-old, and we've shown her Pretty in Pink, and she loves your character, and she loves Ducky too.
Ducky's
The Duckman,
adorable.
right? And actually, my husband's on this call outside, and he has a question for you. And he said, "Is it more challenging, or do you prefer working on projects where a lot of the script may be ad-libbed, like Ghostbusters? Do you like doing comedies best also?"
I love doing comedies, but I I was classically trained at Stevens, and I was never a fan of, I like to have a script. I really don't like to improvise. I just prefer to have a really good solid script. So and the script to both the Ghostbusters was wonderful. but the boys, you know, Bill and Danny and everybody, they came from another tradition. So even though Danny Aykroyd wrote it, he was fine with people inventing stuff as they came from that. But hey, I'm an old-fashioned girl. I just like a good script.
I hear you. Melissa is saying, Annie, you're amazing. Any words of progressive wisdom as we head toward the election?
Whoa.
Pray,
Yeah.
pray. It does work. It's proven. And otherwise, get out there and
Vote.
vote. Yeah, vote.
Joan Lipton is saying, I love you and your work, Annie. I know you have been supportive of pro-choice efforts. I met you at an event that Stacy Newman organized. Are you still actively involved in pro-choice advocacy and progressive politics?
Certainly progressive politics, and I do support pro-choice candidates. And I haven't been working for them per se, though. There have been so many other things that have collared me and taken me to them. But I am certainly in support of that.
Thank you. Thank you. And last question, what are you most proud of? That's from us. That's a question from me and Susan. Amongst all the things that you've done.
You know, I have to say that it's because so much has been given to me. I grew up in a wonderful environment with loving family, and I've had every opportunity, education, everything, wonderful children, work that I loved and sustained me. And but the greatest thing of all of that is that out of that, I've been put in a position that I can help others. So so I'm most grateful to do that, and most grateful to I have a lot of energy. I've always had just an abundance of energy. In fact, I probably won't sit down. This is the longest I'll sit down for the next 9 months. But it's like the universe always, like, you know, allows me to do things like be with the Hammermans for 5 days and help in that campaign. And I'm just most grateful for those opportunities where I could help others. I think that that's what the other work is all about. So that it's that work.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate all of your work. And we absolutely appreciate your time, Annie, this morning. You have been amazing. And thank you for answering all of our questions and being so gracious. And good luck on resuming Young Sheldon.
Thank you.
And thank you, Lauren, again, for operating all of this. And thank you, Annie, too, for your assistant giving us all your film.
Oh, good. Yes, she's good at that.
And we will be back, Susan and I, on October 27th for the next coffee talk. And I hope everyone has a great day. And thank you again for coming on. And thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you all.
It was a pleasure.
And Annie,
My
we
pleasure.
are thanking you with a sponsorship of
Oh, thank you.
a child that goes through our back to school store, getting him or her totally ready for school.
Oh,
coats, underwear, everything.
oh,
Thank you,
that's
Susan.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. That's the best gift a girl could get.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Everyone. Be safe and be well.
And Happy New Year.